All right, welcome into another Auburn Live show. I'm Justin Hokanson, auburnlive.com. If you're not part of the community, please go subscribe. auburnlive.com. With us on this Monday morning is former Auburn quarterback Ben Leard. Joins us always. We do the Monday morning quarterback. Ben, what's up, man?
Oh, what's happening, buddy? Glad it's football season again. Glad to be doing this, man.
Yeah. By the way, if you see me look over with a face don't say anything, it's because my daughter's in there watching cartoons. So if she pops in the door and you see me she's
Hey, you say that about your little girl. I mean, obviously, I've been there, done that. Even with Marley being a freshman at the university, and then the twins are sophomores at Auburn High. So I fully understand that. Even now at the office, if I turn my head, it's because somebody at my office doesn't realize what a closed door stands for, and they'll just bust on in. So
yeah.
it's you never outgrow, for some reason you never outgrow the ability to interrupt something at some point.
No. And she's 3. I'll give her she didn't quite get it, but I'll
She
be
deserves some grace. Give her some grace.
So she's in there watching Coco Melon. We'll see how long that lasts.
Yep.
All right. We didn't talk to you last week. So let's just kind of get your thoughts, man. 2 weeks in, wins over Mercer and San Jose State. Mercer was fine. San Jose State was a struggle, which is not a great sign probably. But Auburn's 2-0 heading into Penn State. What are some things that you've seen the first 2 weeks that stand out, good or bad? Just kind of where are you at with this team 2 weeks in?
Man, totally different place today than where I was a week ago. Just San Jose State, that game really derailed me from the standpoint of, man, Auburn can really have a decent run. Obviously, these first 5 games, lots of concern, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I thought they played well against Mercer. It's Mercer, right? I mean, you can't really gauge a whole lot based on their performance offensively and defensively. But it was good to get that win under their belt. I mean, everybody ultimately was kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater and thinking that the 2 interceptions from Finley should ultimately lose him the starting position. And basically, because Robbie Ashford can do some things athletically, that they should, indoctrinate him as the starter for the remainder of the year. Well, in Robbie Ashford's first attempt on Saturday, I think everybody realized real quick why the staff put Finley in the position they put him in. Had a wide open Landon King running a corner route off of a little bit of a mesh game with the slot guy. And unfortunately, Robbie just threw it, right between the numbers of the defender when Landon was wide open on that corner ball. And it was difficult. But, again, first game jitters, great. Second game, I think hopefully what people will realize and see is that San Jose State is a better ball club than I believe everyone expected them to be, even Auburn's football team. But at the end of the day, it was a second game. They are 2-0. At this point, there's a lot of things for improvement, but they've also done a lot of things well. I would believe. The offensive line, I think, is coming around. They're doing a fair job. They're doing really good jobs in protection. They're doing some good things from a run game perspective. But when you look at it top to bottom, the performance they had against Mercer, I think it was one that everyone felt positive and optimistic coming off of. The performance against San Jose State, all over the field, was one that everyone is doubting the ability to beat Penn State, beat Missouri, and then obviously LSU comes to town. So there's a lot of question marks, man. A lot of question marks, but I think that can be answered, good or bad, based on Saturday's performance against the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a revealing game, obviously. And what's crazy is, as frustrating as Saturday's game was against San Jose State, I mean, Missouri just got blitzed by Kansas State, right?
Yeah.
LSU is, athletic, but like Auburn there's still nothing necessarily that's changed my viewpoint of Auburn could still start 5-0.
Yeah.
Like nothing's changed in terms of how I look at Penn State, Missouri, and LSU. Penn State's going to be their toughest test probably of those three. Let me ask you about the quarterbacks, because that's where that's the topic. That's what we're trying to figure out, is whether this thing is going to work or not. When you made the jump you did from 98 to 99 to 2000, obviously the 2000 team was really good, but you really made 98 to 99 a massive jump in production. What went into that? And what was it just maturity? Was it a different offense? Ronnie Daniels helped. But what went into that? And is it too, I look at TJ and how he played, how he started that game and how he finished it.
Yeah.
And look, I've been very critical of TJ Finley. But I do give him credit when it's due. And I thought he bounced back and he performed well at the end of that San Jose. Really, the last 3 quarters of that game, it was probably his best 3 quarters of football.
Pick,
huh?
Post pick TJ is that's the Finley that Auburn needs.
It's probably the best 3 quarters of football he's played.
Yeah,
I mean, he was 12 of 15. Down the stretch, threw a couple of really nice balls. Where is his progression at? Do you think he can keep that going? Is it hard to make? What kind of jump can you make during the season? I'm just trying to figure out, when you look at TJ Finley right now, can you go, okay, maybe take a little confidence from that, maybe go into the Penn State game? I mean, how much better can he get during the season? Because we're watching him now. He's throwing now 3 picks in 2 games. Not great, but there's some good signs there too. So can he flip a switch in the middle of the year, or is what we've seen so far going to kind of be him all year?
So to go back to your original question regarding me and kind of the evolution that I had, fortunately, in 98, man, I just, and really hearing TJ make the comments that he made before the Mercer game kind of reminded me of some things that I went through developmentally even that long ago. Is in 1998, man, I was super immature. I mean, I had no idea truly what went into being successful as an SEC quarterback from a preparation standpoint. The time that needed to be devoted to it from a game planning, schematics, all of those kind of things, and really devoting the time that it took to know what was going to be done before it was even called. And that really, obviously, in my performance in 1998, exhibited how poorly I was prepared. I will say this, that along with that, one of the main contributors to my jump in production, I truly believe this, is the change of offense. And again, I pull no punches when it comes to Jimbo Fisher. His offense and his ability to adapt between quarterbacks is horrendous at best. You went from a quarterback in Damian Craig, who I truly feel was light years ahead of his time, and one of the best, if not the best, quarterback all in all that's been on this campus. Truly, from a X's and O's perspective, and his ability to do things with the ball in his hand, and really from a leadership perspective as well. But Damian and I, obviously, you could not have any different quarterbacks, and he was number 1 and I was number 2. Jimbo's offense, in any way, shape, form, or fashion, did not change. His play calling did not change from 1997 to 1998. And, again, part of that's on me because I did not execute the plays that were called. But as a coach, you would think that you're seeing a kid that is so slow you can time him with the sundial, and his strength is in analysis and understanding secondaries and the Peyton Manning-esque kind of stuff versus the Damian Craig, Michael Vick, Cam Newton scenario, right? Jimbo made 0 adjustments. Then jump into 99. Tubbs gets here. We're playing under Coach Mazzoni, and one of the number one things that I will always remember Coach Mazzoni telling us, and this there were really two, and he did it in the same meeting. We're sitting in a position meeting room, and we're going through film, and he starts talking about, guys, I need you guys to learn and understand how I coach. I need you to learn and understand how I'm going to collaborate with you and talk to you, blah, blah, blah. Where we had gone from the previous couple of years from absolutely getting dog cussed, and you feel like you're 2 inches tall, and you're a waste. I mean, you're a waste of a scholarship. I mean, you just feel like a whipped puppy. Well, Mazzoni's philosophy was 2 things. One, I, as your coach, as your offensive coordinator, will never, ever downtrod you in front of your teammates. Your teammates optically are going to see and hear and believe as if you make 0 mistakes from a mental standpoint. Your decisions are crisp, accurate, and when you make a play call or when you make an audible or when you make an adjustment, it is the right adjustment at the right time. Because I want them, he as the offensive coordinator wanted them to believe everything that I was doing or the quarterback was doing was the right call, so that subliminally there's not a doubt in their mind. They're going to go 100%. That was, man, you want to talk about a good feeling to know that. But he also caveated that and saying, listen, guys, that happens on the field. Now, when we come in this position room, gloves are off. When we watch the film and it's just us and our little circle of trust, I'm going to crawl your ass.
Right.
I'm going to coach you hard, which was fine. We understood the assignment. So that was really a positive boost to me and the other guys on the, within the position on the roster. The other thing that once we got accustomed to the way Coach Mazzoni, handled things and how he coached, he also told us this. He said, guys, I want you to do something. I want you to take out your playbooks. And it was a massive playbook with all different varieties of things. And as any college Division I level offense was, even back in the day, he said, here's what I want you to understand as the quarterback of this offense. He said, the success of this offense is predicated by your ability to make adjustments, by your ability to adapt, and by your ability to do so quickly. He said, you need to know this offense so well, because as the quarterback of this offense in this league, you have the green light to make any adjustment at any time that you feel necessary, period. No questions asked. So long as you have the right personnel in the game, and you understand that, you make whatever audible and adjustment you deem necessary at that given time. Now, I say that if you make that adjustment and it doesn't work, when you come to the sidelines, you got some explaining to do. You have to be able to justify why you did what you did. That taught me more about how to play the position than anything I think I've ever encountered, because it was situational type things. I'm not going to throw a fade ball on 3rd and 1. I'm going to change to a different run look, and I'm going to give the ball to Rudy Johnson and let him get the first down. Live to play another day. make those types of adjustments. And that was really, in my opinion, along with my just intellectual maturity, I think that change and that adaptation from a coaching perspective really aided my production in 99 and 2000. Now, granted, I had some guys that could play too. I mean, I had, between Ronnie and Reggie and Marcel Willis, Clifton Robinson, Coop. I mean, I had guys that really were like me, that were starving for some success. And then we introduced Rudy there in 2000, which took a huge load off everybody's shoulders. But, in looking at TJ, I still think he's right on the cusp of him just breaking out. I mean, he makes some throws. If you look at, I remember watching Saturday's game, sitting there, and he throws that ball on I think it was Johnson, that went fully across the middle of the field.
Yeah.
He throws it right over the head of the defender. Really, it was the ball. It was essentially the same type ball or route. It was just capped by the end zone. It was the same type throw that he made had an interception on the week before. He just threw it, he made the right read, but just made a bad throw. And this week it was a phenomenal throw and a clutch conversion to a first down. So, I think there are going to be, and they are, a lot of opportunities at this point for TJ to continue to improve. What I don't want to see is him getting frustrated, or him being a little bit, China dollish with the insertion of Ashford and the plays that he's able to make. Because what that is going to do is it's going to create, you and I talking about it, right? It's going to create people saying Robbie should be doing this and Robbie should be doing that. It magnifies every mistake each other makes. They have to be bulletproof in that and have ultimate confidence in what they can do and know that they're contributing to a win, period. But I will say this, that it's not all on TJ and Robbie. If they expect the production to improve, that has to be in concert with the improvement of all of the skill positions and all of those guys creating explosive plays in the passing game at the tight end position, at the receiver position. A couple of things that, if you look back at the stat line on Saturday, I can't remember at what point it was, but there were either 0 or single-digit receptions by anyone at the receiver position until, late into the ball game.
Right.
Either Tank, Jarquez, or Damari were having the receptions. They were all check downs, right?
Yeah.
That can be attributed to a couple of different things. One, the receivers just aren't getting open, and there needs to be vast improvement there. Number two, TJ might not have his eyes downfield. He may be at the point where he's still looking too much at his feet. He's too worried about pressure. And based on last year's performance of the offensive line, I don't blame him, but it's a new year, new day. So I hope that, I do believe that TJ's best days are ahead of him. I think Robbie's best days are ahead of him. But there's a lot of chips that have to fall in order for that to happen, that truly they don't necessarily control. They've got to have playmakers, come to the surface at their skill positions. Tank and Jarquez, no doubt in my mind, they're dudes. I mean, they look different now. I mean, they look the part. Damari Austin looks great as a true freshman, but at some point they got to put the ball in the air and make plays. And right now I don't have a good sense. I'm not saying they're not there, but I don't have a good sense who that guy is, who that go-to person is, where TJ can look at him and say, hey, come hell or high water, get open. I'm coming to you because we got to have this first down. And at some point, every successful football team has that level connection.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. I think that's probably not being talked about enough in the general sense. I would guess is that we're getting caught up in the quarterbacks and specifically them and their play, and that's fine. But I do think the receivers to this point, there's still something lacking there, and we kind of look. They were kind of a question mark going in. I mean, we didn't know exactly what that group would look like, and so far through 2 games, it's about. It's kind of about what we thought. I mean, there's just not a legitimate playmaker. There's not a lot of separation. Now you have a couple of guys, Javaris Johnson and Tavares Dawson, that have got the speed to separate. And I think Auburn's going to have to lean more on those guys to create room. And so, yeah, it's not all on the quarterbacks. It's for sure not all on the quarterbacks. Those guys are going to have to step up and play well. The one positive, I'll say this about what I saw from the quarterbacks, is as bad as that first quarter was, and it was atrocious. I mean, it was 3. I mean, we had 2 picks, and we had 2 picks and 2 completions, I think, in the first quarter between them. As bad as it was, I'm wondering. TJ played pretty well the last 3 quarters, all in all. Robbie, had a couple of good runs. If they can sort of figure out and be comfortable in what the rotation and the roles will be, I think, in other words, when Robbie, from what I understand, Robbie got more practice reps leading into San Jose State than he did the week before. I would guess TJ didn't love that, right? And so now you have another game under your belt where TJ finished strong. And if you're TJ and you're, to me, the operation now is the operation between how that's going to work is more clear.
Yeah.
For good or bad. Like, I'm not saying it's but I do think there's something to be said about a confidence and a comfort in, okay, if you're TJ, you're going, okay, I'm gonna be the main operator of this offense, like I am. And Robbie's gonna come off the bench and he's gonna be a part of the game plan. But I think given how TJ finished that game off, maybe he can take something with him, and maybe that coaching staff can instill in him, hey, here's the deal, TJ. You're going to be the main operator. Robbie's going to play, and he's going to come off. But don't lose faith in you're going to be the main operator. Because I think what you saw last week is Robbie's not ready. He's just not. He's not. He could have thrown another interception on the out route. He rolled out, was way behind, way high on a throw to Javaris Johnson. He's not there as a passer. So, that's at least one element of this that I'm curious to see if it can translate into Penn State, is if those guys are a little more comfortable in what their role is going to be. Because Robbie, after week 1, Robbie's sitting there thinking, maybe I can be the guy. And TJ going, am I going to be the guy? And
well,
I think that got cleared up a little bit Saturday. So if they can take something into the Penn State game of, here's the deal. You're the main operator. You're going to play, Robbie. That's the deal. Complement each other. Can that elevate them both?
And I totally agree with that, Hope. And there's a lot to that the coaches have to take on themselves in communication to the kids.
Yes.
Right. Someone needs to sit these 2 men down and say, guys, here's where we are as an offense, and here's where we're going as an offense. And this is how your role in this situation plays out. Just like you had said, TJ, and that's if the coaches feel this way, right? But TJ, you're the guy. You're the alpha male in the scenario. You're the lead operator. You're our starting quarterback. But let's just call a spade, son. There are parts of Robbie Ashford's game that he brings to this offense that you physically just can't do. Just like there are parts of your game that Robbie cannot do. Now, if we could take it and melt you both together, we'd have a hell of a quarterback. But right now, we don't have that. So do not look at this as if you are constantly on audition. We are putting you in this role, the roles that we have designed and designated for you within this offense so that it helps us win football games. And I hate that I'm doing this, but if you look right now at the performance of Stetson Bennett in Athens, I promise you that you can watch him play football right now in the first 2 games of the season. Someone has sat him down in the offseason and said, Stetson Bennett, you're our starting quarterback. Your job is in no way in jeopardy. You don't have anything to worry about. Go out and do you, son. He has not had that conversation in years past.
Yeah.
He's that what you don't want, you want there to be a healthy level of competition at the quarterback position. You want the kids to feel as if, hey, I've got to perform, I've got to deliver. But you also don't want them focused on what's over their shoulder. You don't want them focused on what's on the sideline to cannibalize them in the situation they're in. They need to be focused on the other 11 on the other side of the ball. And with as athletic and as dominating as SEC defenses are, they need 100% of that focus being pointed in that direction. So I hope that if that is the position of this offensive staff and Brian Harsin, and it's based on the first 2 weeks of performance, and this is where they are, kind of what their philosophy is going to be going forward at the quarterback position. Somebody needs to tell the kids. Somebody needs to sit them down, talk to them. Hey, this is what we're doing. This is not to create animosity. This is not to create problems in the locker room. This is not to create, hesitancy on your part. Your jobs and your roles in this offense aren't in jeopardy. But this is what your role is. Go do it. Yeah. And there is a level of maturity there that's going to require the 2 young men to not pay attention to the Ben Leards and the Justin Hokansons and the Paul Feinbaums of the world that talk about, he threw a pick, maybe it's time to give Ashford a few more snaps, or where's Zach Calzada in all of this? That's, stay the course. If they just focus on their little bubble and stay the course, I do think that there is ample opportunity for success. And the deck is stacked and everyone in their favor to be able to do so, but it's going to take some things falling in place.
Yeah. I'm curious. I may try to ask, we speak to Coach Harsin every Monday for his press conference. And I think that would be interesting to hear his thoughts on when does it transition from, we want to ride the hot hand to having, hey, this is more how it needs to operate. And we can't, you throw a pick. Okay. Now that guy's got to come in. And I think you've got enough data on who these guys are right now. And I think San Jose State was a good indicator of that, of a main operator and a complement. So I'm curious to see what that looks like against Penn State. Now, the hope is offensively, we can only hope because we're not in the film room, is that they've been really vanilla on offense. And they've basic passing concepts. And I think they have. I've seen some similar things.
I hope that defensively too.
Right. And I think probably both ways. I haven't seen a lot of blitzing. There hasn't been a lot. It's been, pretty straight up. And there's going to be some of that. You're definitely saving stuff up for Penn State. But I think just overall, it's been just kind of a ho-hum first couple of games, and something that's sort of transitioning off the quarterbacks that stood out to me through 2 games is obviously the turnovers now. I mean, just for the record, Auburn's now -4 turnover margin through 2 games. I think that puts them 92nd in the country. They've forced none. Against 2 non-conference teams, you force no turnovers. Now, again, maybe that's lack of blitzing. Hey, we're just going to play straight up. We're going to play some man, play it pretty simple. We're not going to show a lot. We're not going to try to wreak havoc because there's a lot of exotic stuff we could do. We're not going to do that. But that's probably outside of the quarterbacks, that's probably the next thing I'm looking at is penalties and turnovers, because this team needs those things to take advantage. They can't go through. Last year's team was 12 turnovers, and they forced 12 and they committed 12. They're zero margin. And then now they're -4. Like, this team, in the way things are going, they can't operate like that. They need to be on the plus side, especially offensively, to create short fields or create opportunities. I mean, this is not an offense that can just take over at the 18 and just sit here and drive and get points. So that's probably the other thing that I'm looking at, that we talk about. It's not all on the quarterbacks. That's ways that the defense can help right there, is force a turnover, force a 3-and-out earlier in the drive. That's probably the other thing that so far has been a little concerning. Defense has been fine, but the lack of turnovers, the lack of pressure on balls in the air from the secondary, tackles for loss. I mean, I think they've got 9 through 2 games. That puts them well down in the rankings. And you've got Hall and Leota and Colby Wooden. You've got these guys. So that's probably outside of the quarterbacks. The other thing that I'm kind of looking at with a curious eye is defensively, where is the aggression? Where's the ability to really disrupt, which I think the front has an opportunity to do. You agree? Disagree?
No, I totally agree. I totally agree on the, one, that this is a football team that is somewhat, their success is somewhat reliant on their ability to create explosive opportunities offensively and defensively. They're not at this point in the season, they're not a dominant enough roster that can just impose themselves on anyone at any point in time. They're just not. They're going to get there. I truly believe in Harson's, in his vision, that they're going to get there. But right now, today, they are very much reliant on everybody on the roster. That they need everybody, pulling the rope in the same direction. Defensively, my hope in thinking back, especially against San Jose State, man, San Jose State, I was so tired of watching them run a motion to the field, leave a single set receiver into the boundary, and throw the damn slant route. It was, and again, I'm like, all right, somebody's either they're not overly concerned with that. It's a vanilla defensive set. It is what it is. Somebody please put the corner on inside leverage, have him bear down just a little bit more slightly in his press. Or how about this? How about have a linebacker take 2 steps out, 1 step max, and it minimizes that window, and you put a lot more pressure on the quarterback to be able to deliver the football with that level of accuracy.
Yeah.
Those type things were frustrating me. Just a little bitty adaptations that the defense was not doing on Saturday against San Jose State. And again, not having headphones on and not being in the meeting rooms and not being on the sidelines, I feel confident that guys like Zach Etheridge and those dudes, they knew what was coming. They knew what was going on, and they were just, they were riding the wave and hoping to survive. And it was just a little bit more, it caused everybody to pucker up just a little bit more than we wanted to. But I do believe that there are some things, especially defensively. I do believe there are some things defensively they have not dialed up. I want to think that they've got some things saved or reserved for this run for Penn State, Missouri, and LSU, because mind you, the coaches know how vital this 5-game homestand is.
Yeah.
To the, not only let's go ahead and say it, not only to the team's success, but to their ability to stay on campus as a coaching staff. I mean, that is what it is, because we all know how brutal the second half of this football season is in the month, especially in the month of October. Man, it's tough, dude. So they need to, I'm hopeful that there are some things that they've got withheld that they're ready to dial up. There's no question marks in my mind on the defensive personnel. I think Auburn's defense is pretty dang salty. I really, really do. They've just got to identify the guys outside of Colby Wooden, outside of Derek Hall, outside of Leota, guys that have played the snaps. And how good is Jason Jones? How good is Jeffrey Imba? How much can Keontae Scott contribute? What about DJ? Those guys that are transfer guys, new incomers that have the talent to compete at the highest level. Let's see what they do when the big dogs come in, and they're going to have the opportunity to do it. And based on conversations with some of these coaches and some of the kids, I truly think that they have the tools to be able to contribute at a very, very high level, just like their teammates in Derek Hall and Colby Wooden and Leota as well.
Yeah. All right. Hey, real quick, before we transition to some thoughts on Penn State, I see your name's not down there. Instead, it says On to Victory. So we talked about On to Victory, the main Auburn NIL collective. We reported on that a good bit at auburnlive.com. We actually reported last week that they broke the $10 million mark in terms of donations. They're working on major gifts. And we talked about that a little bit, but I see On to Victory on your thing. Real quick, I know you've obviously spoken with them and the importance of what they're trying to do. We've seen ads on the video board in Jordan Hare Stadium, which has been big. But real quick, talk about what you know about the progress they've made, why it's important from your perspective, because I think fans are finally starting to understand a little bit. But man, there's still I think a big disconnect between the normal fan and what Auburn NIL is, what On to Victory is, and how it can help.
Well, I think that from my perspective and the development of On to Victory is it was necessary. It was truly a lifesaver when it comes down to Auburn athletics, in my opinion. It is it is the only Auburn NIL collective, which historically that's been one of Auburn's biggest problems. They've been so segmented that it has really watered down the ability for a strategic plan to be effective. You've had this faction over here, this faction over here, and it's just very, very little moving in the same direction. The On to Victory being the only Auburn NIL collective, I believe, gives Auburn one stream of NIL ability and funds to support Auburn athletics. And they've done a tremendous job, being led now by Brett Whiteside, to kind of circle the wagons and tell people, hey, this is what we are doing. This is what we're poised and ready to do. And this is what we are going to do in favor of Auburn's student athletes. That is a huge victory. Yeah. So for those kids to benefit those young men and women while they are on campus and enrolled and contributing to our beloved university, I think it's a huge benefit. And you're right, man. There's so many unanswered questions because this is uncharted territory. We're right. Only, if you think about it in perspective of football seasons, you're only in your second season of something that is absolutely groundbreaking.
Yeah.
And, in my opinion, should have been done a long time ago. I wish it was around when Rob and I were playing, but there is an opportunity to benefit these young men and women and do some things for them in contrast for an exchange for their name, image, and likeness, and really give them the opportunity to capitalize on the success that they have while performing their talents and expertise for our beloved university. And I'm excited to support it. I'm excited to be a part of it. I'm excited to speak on it, answer questions about it. But it is there's a website at this point called ontovictory.com. The folks that have come to the game have probably noticed there's they'll run an ad on the Jumbotron where a couple of the guys are talking about the benefits of On to Victory. And I just urge everyone to ask all the questions you have. Ask as many questions as you have, regardless if you're someone that is is $100 a year person. It doesn't matter. Everything that is there is designated to support these student athletes, male and female. And I think as an Auburn family, this gives us the ability to collectively come together as one and do something that allows Auburn to keep up with the pace that is NIL and name, image, and likeness.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll have Brett Whiteside. We'll probably get him on the message boards at some point at auburnlive.com. Maybe do a Q&A as they try to ramp this thing up. I think right now the stage we reported on it last week that they're in kind of a major gifts campaign now, and that they've raised over $10 million. They've surpassed that mark. And the next phase really is developing a website, developing a subscription model, and incorporating the everyday fan. That's a little more detail oriented, and that takes a little more time to create the right processes there and have everything in place so that if 10,000 people went to a website right now and started to try to sign up and give, are you ready for that?
Right.
There's a lot of little things that go into that.
And there's just like you had said, they're in that major gift push at this point. Obviously, it was a pretty short period of time that they were able to collect the 10 million plus. And that's a level of gift that they know that it's going to be you need that consistently year over year in order for you to be able to successfully fund the name, image, and likeness collective, on an annual basis. And they do have the vision, and they're definitely going to move in the direction of opening it up to contributions that are much smaller than what we would have from a major gift perspective. And quite frankly, that's more the 95% of any fan base, right? Or 99% for that matter, that those are the people that are going to go in and give $100 to the collective or give $250 to the collective. But you take that and you multiply that times the number of fans that you have in that fan base. Those are dollar figures that move the needle, but they have to have the infrastructure prepared for that, because what you would have happen right now, if you just open it up to the masses, the casual fan that's a little bit on the fence is going to go in just like you and I do. You hit a glitch in the system, you get frustrated enough to say, I'm out. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go fix my coffee and go about my day. Yeah. And months go by and you're none the wiser. So they need to make sure that the infrastructure is built up in order to minimize any frustration from a flow perspective. And I think Brett and his team are working towards that and have done a tremendous job thus far. But again, there's a lot more rows to be hoed at this point, and they're moving in the right direction. I think I truly think that the light at the end of the tunnel is big and bright, and it will ultimately lead to major success in the athletic department.
Yeah. So go to ontovictory.com. I think that's the website, and you can learn a little bit about them. I think they have the board on there. You can learn who the board members are, the 7 board members. You can kind of learn a little bit about how they're going to operate, things like that. Before you can learn a little bit about them now, before before they kind of get into the point of whether you want to be a contributor and all that. And then I think we still have. If you go to auburnlive.com and go to our football news feed and go back just into last week. I mean, just go back a page or two. There's an NIL story that talks a little bit about kind of where they're at. All right, before you get out of here, Penn State, a couple thoughts on Penn State. I'm still fairly optimistic about Auburn's opportunity after watching the San Jose State game. Penn State's coming into town. I think they're ranked 22, 23 in the polls. I still think Auburn is in a really good position to win this football game. Penn State's a very similar team as they were last year. Sean Clifford's back. You don't have Juwan Dotson, but you've got talented guys. They've got a 5-star freshman running back, Noah Singleton, that will be interesting to see how good he is. Defensively, good players. You got a defensive tackle, PJ Mustipher, who's really, really good. And then you've got, dang it, I can't remember his name at corner, who's back. His dad played in the NFL. And he's slipping my mind right now, but they've got some good players. But I think Auburn enters this game. Clearly, they held some things back. We know they did. Now they got to execute those things. Those things have to work. They're going to bust some new things out against Penn State. You got to execute. At home should be a great environment. I think they probably will be able to learn a lot from last year's game. I think about last year's game. Sean Clifford was like 28 of 32. It was insane. The plan to defend that defense was kind of crazy, right? That was like the first game where everybody was like, so Derek Mason's we're just gonna play back.
Yeah.
We're just gonna play back and let it. So I think there's a lot to learn from that won't happen again. And I just think Auburn's in a decent position to create a game plan here and win the game, assuming they execute some of the new things correctly and assuming TJ builds off some confidence. What are your thoughts heading into this game against a top 25 Penn State team with a really experienced quarterback? You're not going to rattle him. That's for sure.
Sean Clifford's a kid that, in my opinion, flies below the radar quite a bit, but he has the resume to put himself up there in consideration as one of the top tier quarterbacks in the country from a consistency perspective. I mean, the kid can play ball. Like you said, you can't rattle him. He's going to sit in the pocket and make his plays and do his things and be successful and be competitive and put his team in position to win ball games.
Yeah.
I am excited about what the atmosphere is going to be like.
Yeah.
Just like it was last season, where I truly think playing in Happy Valley aided Penn State tremendously in that game.
Crazy. Yeah.
I think it's the converse of that. I think Auburn, Jordan Hare is a magical place. It is going to help propel Auburn at least to a neutral position or even a plus position. And the guys are just going to have to go out and make plays. There's a lot of uncertainty surrounding Penn State from, I think in the back, in the back half of their defense and the back seven from a linebacker and secondary perspective, with the exception of one field corner. So there's the opportunity there for Auburn to test them. But when you look at strength on strength, I think it's a scenario of how well will Auburn's front seven be able to play and how much will they be able to pressure Clifford, because Penn State's offensive line, their ability to run the football, play action pass is a strength of Clifford in the Penn State offense. So how well can they execute those things, and how well can they do so inside Jordan Hare? I agree with you that there is just as many questions surrounding Penn State at this point. I would think if you asked some of their fans as to really how good are you, where are your strengths, where are your weaknesses, just as there are around us questioning where Auburn is, at this point, 2 games into the season. So there's going to be a lot of levels, and a lot of the onion gets peeled back on Saturday for both sides of the field for both rosters. But it's going to be a great game. It's going to be super physical. I mean, it's going to be super, super physical. It's going to be very similar, I think, to what Auburn fans would probably visualize. If you're going to compare it to a game, I think you look at it to one of those old school LSU matchups. Mm-hmm. Athletes all over the field, but it's still, the game's not going to leave the trenches. Maybe an Arkansas type matchup, big guys getting after it, just that top style of football. So it will be interesting to say the least. But I'm like you. I think if Auburn just stays the course, they stay within themselves and don't do things that put them in a bind per se and have themselves to be digging out of a hole, I think they will come out of the game victorious and really get a huge punch in the arm leading into the first SEC matchups, the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, and Joey Porter Jr. is who I was trying to think of. He was on their team last year. He's 6'2", 200-pound corner, freak athlete, going to play in the NFL. He's a really talented player, so probably don't go his way a whole lot if you're Auburn. But he'll be more on the outside receivers. So that's why I think somebody like Dawson and Johnson plays. Yeah, it's going to be. I agree with you. It's going to be a physical game. Auburn's going to have to obviously run the football, which they're going to have to do every game. It's a game that I predicted. So before the season started, I predicted Auburn would win this game by double digits. I don't know if I'd make that prediction now. Penn State's a 3-point favorite. But I do still feel the same. Like I said, I do still feel like there's some things that Auburn has in their favor going into this game. I also didn't think they'd struggle against San Jose State. So I thought they would take a lot of that offseason momentum of being the underdog into this game. And I think they still are to some degree, but the San Jose State game was a little bit of a hiccup. I mean, that wasn't very smooth, if you will. And so I still think they're going to take a lot of that underdog mentality and all-season training and stuff into this game, and I think that will help them bring some new scheming things that'll help them. The crowd will help them. So there's still some things that I like in Auburn's favor here to pull this game off, but they got to go out and execute. And again, it's just going to be a revealing game, and we kind of knew that. Mercer and San Jose State, Auburn won them, but that's not the level of competition they're going to play. Penn State's a different thing. So, it's going to be a really revealing game. I hate to sound like Steve Sarkisian because you want to win. But, there is an element of it's not a terrible thing to have this game before SEC. You're going to learn a lot before you got to chalk up something in the conference. So that's not terrible. Worst case scenario, right? They lose the game. If they can take something out of it and then go into the SEC play where you're still 0-0, that's not the worst thing. So there's a lot of positives going into this game, but it's going to be revealing one way or another. I mean, either the quarterback situation is going to continue to evolve in a good way, or it's going to expose it for what it is. Which could be really bad. I mean, it's going to one of those two things. I think that's probably the biggest thing we're going to learn. Auburn's defense is going to be fine, but we're going to learn if this quarterback system is it evolving in the right direction, or is Penn State just going to expose the weaknesses and the struggles of trying to balance these guys, and it's going to expose the passing game, and you're going to go, this offense can't beat Mississippi State, they can't beat Arkansas, they can't beat Ole Miss, they can't beat Georgia, they can't beat Alabama, or is this offense going to start to show signs of, if they need to, could they go get 30? Right now, I would, against a good team, that's hard for me to say that they would. Yeah. Can they show signs that they will?
I agree. And I think ultimately at this particular game is a scenario that, Penn State's defense is going to be very similar to Auburn's, that they're stingy. They're a tough-witted, group. They're very hard-nosed, blue-collar type attitude. And that's just Penn State's mentality. It's always been that way. And that, what I would caution everyone as you watch this ball game, don't grow frustrated with a 21-17 game. don't get frustrated with multiple 3-and-outs, because I think you're going to see that from both sides. I think you're going to see a defensive ball game that is a kind of I think both Penn State and Auburn are going to come into the game with the mindset that on a 3rd and 1, they're going to punt. They're going to play the field position battle, because Penn State, number one, isn't ultimately confident that Auburn can drive the football. And they're going to just, they're going to have some, back and forth that they ultimately win the field position battle. And Auburn's going to do the same, because they don't know really how good Penn State is offensively as a whole. They're all 11 guys. So what I would caution everyone and urge them not to do is grow frustrated with kind of that nickel and dime, crawl type offense in this particular game. You very well may see a game come out 17-14, 17-10. You just don't know. But I don't think I would be very surprised if you see either team scoring in the high 20s or 30s, in this particular ballgame.
I agree. I was trying to think, what was it, 27-21 last year?
Yeah.
Was that it?
Yeah, I'm almost positive it was somewhere around in there, because Auburn, they're leading into the game. They had that last, somewhat last drive to put them in position to win.
28-20. Yeah, because it was 28-17. I think Auburn made it 28-20, and then they were going to have to score and get a 2 points. So 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would agree. I mean, it's going to be somewhere in there, in the 20s. I don't think anybody gets to 30. That would be a little surprising, I think.
Yeah.
Well, it's a big game, man. I was just thinking it's one. I was actually thinking last night of non-conference games in Jordan-Hare. I mean, in terms of clout of the program coming in, it's the biggest in that regard. It's the biggest since USC in 2003 in terms of the type of program coming in. You've had some pretty cool games. West Virginia in 2009, Syracuse came to town in 2002. You've had Kansas State's been here. Georgia Tech's been to Auburn in 2003 in 2007 was Georgia Tech. 2007, I think, or 2005. Shit, I can't remember. When did Georgia Tech? Reggie Ball came in there and beat Auburn. I think it was 2005, because it was 2003. They didn't play in 2004. I think it was 2005.
It was 2005. It was Brandon Cox's first first season as a starter.
Yeah, so there've been some interesting non-conference games, but I mean, in terms of the type of program, a traditional powerhouse, a cool helmet game, Penn State coming in, it's gonna be really neat. It's gonna be neat to see Penn State and that program, that uniform, that helmet on the field in Jordan-Hare, the same way it was really cool to see Auburn playing, at Penn State and Beaver Stadium last year. It's one of those games. If you grew up in the NCAA football era, you would play it. You would play those games like, well, we're never going to see it in real life. So let's play Auburn at Notre Dame. So that'll be cool. That'll be cool just to see Penn State on the field. And man, you're talking about for Harsin right now, his signature win is Ole Miss last year. Ole Miss was 10th in the country. You beat them at home. That's his signature win. I mean, LSU on the road was big, but that wasn't as good of a football team. It's big for historical reasons. But this would be a big one. I mean, this would be, in terms of a signature win, given the circumstances of everything that's going on, probably his biggest win of his career to this point, certainly at Auburn. Not full career, but at Auburn. This would be, I think, bigger than the Ole Miss game because of, I just think, the circumstances, new season. Last year they were 5-2, I think. They lose to Ole Miss. Okay, they're 5-3, but you're 5-2 at that point. This team's 2-0, hadn't shown a lot. Yeah, this would be a massive win.
Well, it's this, right? I mean, in my opinion, this is aside from all of the other white noise that's out there, this is a big game within itself.
Yeah.
But when it is especially big when you look at it from a developmental standpoint and a momentum standpoint, that, man, they hope they win this game. They pull this one off. the momentum carries itself. You know, what you and I would truly believe is a W against Missouri. And then you find yourself at 4-0 hosting, you know, one of your main SEC rivals in LSU coming to town and have the opportunity to start out 5-0.
Yeah.
That is there's a lot riding on this game against Penn State. Just, you know, even within the game itself, but on the outside, it will, you know, the pressure will bust the pipes, and hopefully the kids will find a way to get a victory against Penn State, and it's going to be, you know, it's going to be off to the races at that point, I believe.
Yeah, can't wait. Saturday 2:30 on CBS. Auburn and Penn State. SEC Nation's going to be there, and so it'll be should be the first big recruiting weekend for Auburn. A lot of kids will be on campus. Good players that they're recruiting. So basketball will probably have a couple kids too. So big weekend. Really, kind of the start of, I think, the official start. Preseason's over. No disrespect to Mercer and San Jose State, even though San Jose State gave Auburn trouble. That was preseason to some degree, and the season starts now. The season starts now. Brian Harson's immediate future, like the trajectory of that starts now. I mean, we're in it now. So, all right, man. Thanks for joining us. I guess we'll do it again next week and be breaking down a big time football game, and a lot of ramifications are going to come from this one. There's no doubt.
This game is going to tell everybody a lot. It's going to tell everybody a lot about the roster. Going to tell everybody a lot about the team. It's going to answer a ton of questions, either good or bad. I think you walk away from this game either super excited or with even more questions. But, you know, obviously you and I both are, you know, glass half full. So we're hoping that there's a lot more excitement than questions when you leave the stadium Saturday night.
Yeah. You going to be there?
Yes, I will. I will absolutely be there.
Yeah. You're a busy man, you know. I never know.
Well, hey,
I don't know where you're going to be.
When it comes to big games in Jordan-Hare, man, I'm all in.
There you go. All right, Ben. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, buddy. War Eagle.
All right, we'll do it again next week. Thanks for everybody joining us. AuburnLive.com. Go subscribe. 7-day free trial. As always, never a better week to do it than now. A lot of Penn State coverage, recruiting coverage. It's going to be a big week. AuburnLive.com. This is the Auburn Live Show. We'll see you next time.